Okay, end of the month, and therefore it is the book review. And this month I'm actually doing a handbook of Saxon sorcery and magic, subtitled Weird Working, Runecraft, Divination, and Walk Cunning by Alaric Albertsson. This is a modern occult or pagan work focused on reconstructing and reimagining Anglo-Saxon magical practice. Albertson collects a range of arts like runecraft, specifically the Anglo-Saxon Futhorc, divination, herbal magic, or otherwise known as walk cunning, incantation known as Galdor, tool rituals such as knives, wands, the sayaks, etc., and also explores practices of soothsaying, magical philosophy, and how to live with a Saxon magical sensibility. The book was previously published under the title Weird Working, so if you read that one, much of this will feel familiar. This is also a great book to read alongside his other one titled Travels Through Middle Earth, the Path of the Path of Saxon Pagan, which focuses on spiritual aspects of the Saxon path. This one specifically focuses on the magical side of things. So, let's start with strong points, things the author may have done well. So, first of all, breadth and scope. Albertson doesn't limit himself to just runes or just herbalism. He weaves many threads: philosophy, tools, ritual work, the more material side of magic, such as the wands and knives, as well as divination, and the inner work, such as weird, will, etc. For someone wanting an overview of Saxon or Anglo-Saxon sorcery, this is one of the more comprehensive books I've seen. Next point would be the focus on the Anglo-Saxon Futhorc. Many rune books focus on the Elder Futhorc, or merge rune traditions themselves. Albertson gives space to the Futhorc, which is the Old English runes, their meanings, their use, classification by theme, etc. And it was that classification of themes or by theme that I found very interesting. You know, he didn't go with the classical ordering of the runes. He actually grouped them into runes that are associated with animals, runes that are associated with the home, etc., etc. So he classified them as by theme. And I just found that to be a very interesting and good approach, especially when you're trying to actually remember or learn the runes themselves. If you can put them into a group of a theme, you know, these ones are animals, these ones are tree based, etc., etc., it can sometimes become a lot easier to learn. But if you're interested in less commonly treated runic systems, this is a big plus. What's the difference, you may ask? Quite a lot, starting with the fact that there are 29 runes in the Saxon set, with an additional 4 that are not mentioned in the rune poems. We also find it's a very practical material. There's a good amount of how-to in here, making charms, consecrating tools, working with herbs, incantations. Albertson gives tools and rituals you can use, not just theory. That tends to make it more usable for someone who actually wants to do magic rather than just read about it. And the tone and accessibility. From what I gather, Albertson tries to balance scholarship, personal practice, and devotional or mystical aspects. The writing is not unreadable. He doesn't assume everyone has degrees in Old English or archaeology, but he also doesn't completely dumb down. For many readers in the pagan or the heathen or the occult space, that's a sweet spot. All right, then moving on to possible weaknesses. Firstly, historical or academic purism versus speculative or UPG, unverified personal gnosis. This is one of the places where people trip up. Albertson uses folk tradition, lore, some historical sources, but inevitably there are places where things are speculative or reconstructed. As previously mentioned, the work is focused on reconstructing and reimagining, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Personally, I think we need more of it. However, some readers have criticized parts where he treats UPG as if it were fact. There's an inherent risk when trying to reconstruct lost magical systems. You tend to fill in the gaps, and those gaps are sometimes large, and which bridges you build matter. If you want purely historical reconstructive work, this book will disappoint in that it blends the scholarly with the mystical. Also, moral, ethical framing. Some reviewers noted that Albertson tends to give guidance or opinion on what is honorable behavior or weird, how actions affect destiny, etc. There are places where he treats certain magical uses, like cursing, with caution, or even negative framings, saying such things as a waste of time or it will affect your fate. That may feel like an imposition of the author's ethical stance. If you're someone who prefers magic to be completely morally neutral or your own moral compass, you may bristle at some of his judgments. But if you can't accept that everyone has a personal opinion, and when it comes to cursing, this is just his, then you might have difficulty reading any book of an occult nature. I'm just saying. Then we have depth versus overview. Because of the breadth, some of the topics aren't extremely deep. War cunning is strong, but you're not going to get a full herbalist manual. Rune work is detailed, but if you want rigorous linguistics or philology, there are gaps. The book is probably not enough for specialist reconstruction practitioners who want full primary source translation, but excellent for intermediate to advanced enthusiasts who want both practice and grounding. It's a discussion of magic within the Saxon path, so it is covering the various practices, it's just not specializing in any specific one. Then there was consistency and clarity. In a few reviews, readers mentioned that certain sections feel repetitive or refer back to the earlier works of Albertsson. Example, if you read my first book, without fully recapping. Also, the way he sometimes gives alternatives or invites readers to drift from strict tradition can be both liberating and slightly confusing. Sometimes you wonder what is typical Anglo-Saxon practice versus what is Albertsson's own extension or creative adaptation. Again, focused on reconstructing and reimagining. Just remember, this is one author and one book. You should be doing good research and reading several. So let's get down to who this book is for and who it's not for. So this would be a good fit for someone curious about Anglo-Saxon magical traditions, especially those less commonly taught in mainstream pagan or heathen books. Also, people who like to weave both inner work and outer magical toolcraft, rune work, herb work, ritual tools, incantation. Also, intermediate practitioners who already have some magical literacy, runes in other systems, herbalism, basic ritual, and want to expand or branch into the Saxon tradition. And beginners who are willing to take some of it with a grain of salt. There's a lot you can learn, even starting out, though you'll want to cross-reference sources and take care with asserted lore. Less ideal for scholars or purists who want fully referenced historical text, strict archaeological evidence, etc. As said, there's blending, speculation, interpretation. And also those who only want a narrow focus, say only herb lore or only runes, and don't want to wade through any adjacent topics. Some parts will feel like padding if they're outside your interest. And also those sensitive to moral framing or wanting their magical work to be free of ethical judgments or prescriptions. Certain stances are present in the book. I do think this is a very, very strong contribution, particularly for those wanting to explore Anglo-Saxon streams. About 25 years ago, when I was trying to explore the more specific Saxon path, I kept getting led to more Scandinavian sources, and although there are overlaps, as they are both Germanic or Teutonic, I couldn't find specific Saxon sources. It was extremely difficult. I am therefore very grateful for these books and the various sources that are now available online. Albertsson has done enough research, enough practice, and has enough integrity in his writing that this is not fluff. It has practical value, spiritual value, and a richness that many magic books miss. At the same time, it is not perfect. The speculative aspects are inevitable in this kind of work. Just be aware. The moral framing might not align with everyone. Some readers might want more critical apparatus, footnotes, sources, comparison to dissenting views, etc. But it's a great book nonetheless. Some key lessons or takeaways, weird matters. The concept of weird, or destiny, the unfolding of one's path is central. How we live, how our actions ripple, how even small magical acts tie into larger currents. Also, runes are more than divination. The book pushes back against treating runes only as a fortune-telling tool. They are tools of identity, metaphysics, personal magic, ritual, and communication. Also, herbs are potent but nuanced. Wart cunning is not simply herbal medicine. It includes symbolic, spiritual, magical layers. Tending with plants is part of magical ethics and worldview. And then tools and ritual matter. The sayax, the wand, the staff, knife work, consecration, all are given serious attention. In many modern practices, tools are symbolic. Here, they are practical, ritualized, and embedded in tradition. If you ask me, should I get this? I'd say yes. If you approach it with both a heart open to magic and a mind willing to question, compare, and adapt. This is not a book to swallow whole without reflection, but it is one you can chew on for a long while, drawing nourishment from many parts, the runes, the herbs, the ritual, and the philosophy. And right, so I just want to, there was a few things that I picked out that I just want to get into. Let me just start at the beginning. Just bits and here and there that I found interesting that I wanted to read. Real magic does not create something impossible, it emphasizes possibilities. Love that quote, I thought that was brilliant. And also, magic is the art of working with that process. It is the art of shaping the ripples as they emerge and thus influencing future possibilities. Just these explanations are great. So I just wanted to pull them out and make you aware of them because they're really, really good. This one also, magic does not shatter reality. Magic shapes reality to your advantage by subtly shaping your weird. Let's have a look. What else was there? This one here. There are some who feel that the tree is being harmed in some way and that this will imbue a negative energy into the wand. I disagree. It is a tree, not a person or an animal. This I just wanted to point out because a lot of witches that I know are animistic, and they, when you want to go, this is in regards to actually like finding a wand or something like that, or taking from harvesting from a tree. And the people I know and myself, we approach it in a different way to this. It's, obviously Alaric Albertsson is not an animist. That's fine. Not everybody is, and this is why I say there's going to be things in here you probably disagree with. That's fine. It doesn't mean that the book's useless. It means that he just has an opinion and you have your opinion or your way of doing it, your own worldview versus his. And that doesn't mean you can't learn from the text itself. And I think we need to be aware of that when we're reading any kind of book. But I just wanted to point this out because my approach is you approach the tree, you talk to the tree, you ask it which part of its limbs you can take for a wand or a staff or whatever you're procuring, and you treat it properly. You ask the energy of the dryad to move into that part and before you cut it, etc., etc., etc. This is a very different approach, so just be aware of that. Yeah, you know, just one person's practice compared to another's, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way he does it. All right, let's go on to the next one. Oh, I found this interesting. This is actually a good statement because I've got. I think that this idea of working with dragons has become more and more. I mean, when I talk about dragons, I'm talking about a particular. It's a current of energy that flows through the land, through your body, and things like that. Not actual dragons, but there's a lot of people who seem to work with, as the statement here says, the dragon is a powerful and destructive spirit. Today, you may occasionally hear people say that they work with dragons in some spiritual way. Whatever these spirits are, they are certainly not European dragons. That's mine. But again, we're coming back to the idea that this is his opinion. It's also my opinion. Previously, I disagreed with his opinion. So, these are just opinions. It doesn't mean you can't learn from the rest of the text if you disagree with this particular statement. But I thought that should be pointed out because it's not often. Right. Let me just check. Where are we now? This one as well about bind runes is a very important statement. This is something a lot of people skip over as well. This is why bind runes are tricky. Other runes can slip into the charm and they will have their effects regardless of whether you intended them to be there. So what this is basically saying, when you start combining runes into a bind rune, you may have 3 runes that you bring in together. But if you're not aware of the fact that as you bring them together, you're also you're bringing additional runes into it, which could affect the bind rune in a negative manner. These are the things you need to be aware of when you're actually doing bind runes. And I did see, for instance, I mean, he mentions it here as well. The Is rune is just a line that goes down. That's it, right? It doesn't matter what rune you introduce into a bind rune, you're always going to have the is rune. So the is rune is generally not included, and I have seen people starting out with the is rune. So just things to be aware of when you're actually doing these practices, because a lot of people, especially when it comes to rune work, and especially bind runes, people kind of like just think they know what they're doing and they just put things together willy-nilly and they go da-da, and meanwhile they're causing pain, illness and sickness and everything else. The famous story of the student of the rune master who put a rune stave underneath a sick woman's bed, and she just got worse. And eventually he went to his rune master and said, I don't know what I did wrong. The rune master came along, pulled out the stave, crossed out one of the runes or the markings, put it back under, and she got well. It's just one little line within a bind rune can alter that bind rune so much, and if you're not aware of it, you can cause a lot of damage. And these are the things people are just not aware of. The runes are incredibly powerful things. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. All right, I think that was it. Let me just check. I think I may have had another one. Hold on. Oh no, that was that. Yeah, right. So that's the review for this book, and thank you for watching and listening. And yeah, definitely go buy this. The link will be in the description to go and buy on Amazon if you want to do that. Otherwise, that's it for the review, and I'll see you next time. Cheers for now. Bye bye.